this one? Why this case? How come we lost time and time again, but this time we won? We won because we changed the context in which that case was fought. We changed it by telling our stories. We changed it by going to Tallahassee and lobbying year in and year out. We changed it by shifting public opinion. For the first time, public opinion is on our side. More than half the state, more than 55% of Floridians say the ban is wrong and shouldn't exist. And we changed it by challenging them to defend it in any forum. When Representative Scott Randolph took the floor on the day that we were successful in getting an amendment on the House and on the Senate floor, then the same day, calling for a repeal of the adoption ban, when Scott Randolph stood up and called the ban out, not one person stood up to defend it. On the Senate side, when 6 senators stood up to talk about how this ban tears families apart, not one senator stood up to defend it, because it's indefensible. When George Reekers was the only witness that the state could scrounge up to try and defend it, he had been discredited long before he got his picture taken with a rent boy in an airport. Right? And that story might have just been one more pathetic story about somebody, sublimating their own internal conflict into anti-gay behavior. It's an old story, we've heard it a lot in Florida. But we did a public records request and discovered that the state had paid him not the astonishing $60,000 that was being reported, but $120,000. And suddenly, what had been a bit of a scandal became a political scandal. And I would argue that the reason that Bill McCollum, Attorney General, is not governor of Florida right now is because he hitched his wagon to some of the most ugly anti-gay rhetoric out there. And in fact, Rick Scott's very last mailer, when the polls called it too close to call or even gave McCollum the edge, was to wrap the Reeker scandal around him. And if Bill McCollum had been heading to the general election instead of Rick Scott, he would have pushed this thing to the Supreme Court. But instead, right now in the state of Florida, and since September 22nd, no longer do you have to check a box that says, are you a homosexual, yes or no? Are you a bisexual, yes or no? A law that had stood for 33+ years in the state of Florida was finally gone.